Welcome back to the Housing Advocate, the podcast of the Southern Utah Home Builders Association. My name is Stacy Young, and I'm super happy to be joined today by Scott Carlson. Welcome in today,
Thank you.
Scott.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming in and talking about a super important topic, and one that we've been kind of circling all year as a high priority for us for the board at SUHBA. And that's mental health and mental wellness. And you've been really involved in that and integral to some of the initiatives there. And so maybe we'll just kind of start by letting you introduce yourself and kind of lead into how you became involved in this initiative with us.
Yeah, for sure. I got into SUHBA, 6-7 years ago when I kind of first started up my business as the safe industry. And so owner of Utah Safe Company and got into that realm. SUHBA's been awesome help on that side. And as the business has progressed, we've helped with different initiatives and been involved with different, charities and different things that way. And we had the opportunity a couple years ago to start providing safes for suicide prevention. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of was interested in that side because I'm like, okay, this is just something that to see, like, if we can make an impact somewhere, like, we definitely want to see more about that and learn more about that. And so did some research and found that, safes and secure storage is actually one of the best ways to prevent suicide. Mm-hmm. Because it creates time and space between an individual that's in crisis and their lethal means. And so we got more into it, started helping out. We initially started out here in Southern Utah. We provided a couple hundred safes for the local behavioral health center and the Southwest Behavioral Health. Then we got involved with the Utah Veteran and Military Affairs. Then we got into the Suicide Prevention Committee and Coalition. Now I'm on a couple different organizations, boards, and a couple different committees for the state. And really just kind of expanded from there and discovered that there was a real opportunity to really make an impact. Mm-hmm. And help people understand. And so we kind of looked at the education side and talking about it a little bit more. And I talked with Denise, here at SUHBA, and I was like, hey, we really should look at doing something like this. Yeah. Because as I learned more and as I was studying more, and I was like, the construction industry is one of the highest industries that there is out there. Yeah. When it comes to, the dangers of suicide and the worst mental health. Mm-hmm. Obviously coming from the stigmas that are out there, and mm-hmm. really just that concept of like suicide is such a taboo topic and people really don't want to talk about it. And so I kind of brought it up and I was like, hey, let's get this going. Let's actually have these conversations because it's our largest risk and we don't want to lose anybody. And so Denise kind of started pushing on that side, and it sounds like the board kind of came more aware of it. And so then they started doing the wellness committee and brought me in to kind of help out with that side. And so I've been helping in those areas, but mainly, coming off from safes and now I'm into the wellness side and helping out there.
Yeah, it's a terrific history that you really bring to this. You've already got the background, and seems like you already had gained so much knowledge and awareness of some of the underlying elements of this. And I can't remember where I came across some of those interesting facts that you mentioned around just creating a little bit of time and space between that moment of crisis and action, and a safe can do that. And I saw one thing that was similar around offenses, bridges, that those have had profound effects on suicide rates, for example. Yeah. And so you think that it's sometimes not a preventable act, but it actually really can be. And I think it's fantastic, and so it always amazes me that the amount of untapped resources that we have within the SUHBA membership, that almost no matter whatever the issue is, we've got a member that has this deep expertise that just can come off the bench with this incredible skill set to help really address a need. And really sadly, we had a precipitating event at the end of last year, a really respected and admired parade builder that took his life. And I think that really, if anybody was unaware of the levels of crisis in our industry, that definitely put a spotlight on it, and I think spurred a lot of action as well. And so I think here we find ourselves in 2026 really taking some much needed action. And you mentioned, I think, a really important element around this, that as an industry, it's not just Southern Utah. It really is a pervasive problem. Mental health is a real challenge nationwide. And I think you mentioned some of the elements. Maybe you could go a little further about some of the kind of the density of risk factors that affect construction workers.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially in the construction industry, the way that it's set up is it's really every business, even though it's one builder, everybody's kind of subcontracting into that build. And so everyone's kind of their own business. And it's really tough because as a business owner, I mean, speaking from experience, it's really tough not to compare yourself to others. Mm-hmm. And so in the construction industry, you're constantly around other businesses, you're around other places. If you're building, parts of these nice homes, you kind of have that comparison model of like, okay, I'm building out a $5 million, $20 million home. Geez, what are these guys doing? What am I doing wrong? Mm-hmm. There's a lot of those kind of concepts. And there's also the stigma of like, I'm a construction worker, I'm tough, I can do anything. Like I can run a nail through my hand and I'm just fine. I'm going to continue to work. Yeah. But then when it comes to the mental health side, it's like, no, we're going to ignore that side because I need to be the tough. I need to be the one that can do whatever is needed of me. Yeah. And then one of the other things I was talking with, it was actually part of our Safe Pillar series in our last class. The instructor brought up, and she's like, there's not many industries that work the way the construction does. Because in the construction industry, you're hired to be fired as soon as possible. Yeah. You're hired to do the job and to get the job done as quick as you possibly can and be done. Yeah. And so it's like, how quickly can you work yourself out of a job? Mm-hmm. And so that constant of like, am I going to have another job after this one? Am I going to find something else? And so that constantly working to lose a job kind of thing, and it just plays on you. And you don't typically think about that in that sense. And so it's really tough that people like subliminally, that's what they're taking in, and they're not making that aware. They're not conscious of that. And so it just makes it that much harder as you're, in this industry of, okay, I'm constantly working myself out of a job, hoping that there's more to go. And so that really plays on to mental health. And so, and then, like I said, there's the business owner aspect side of things, that as a business owner, like, you have to make sure your employees are paid. You have to make sure that you're getting new jobs. You have to make sure that you're covering the insurance. You have to make sure you're doing the licensing. You have to make sure everybody is doing the things. And there's all that added stress plus doing the job and getting the business done, and plus a family and everything else that plays into life. There's just so many stress factors that come in. And like, I always joke with people that I'm like, oh man, before I was a business owner, I had a full luscious head of hair. And I'm like, after I became a business owner, it all went away and I got grays starting to show up. And it's just those kind of things that play into it, that it's, you just, that's kind of the name of the game being a business owner, is you have those added stresses. And so making mental health a priority is huge, because we want to make sure that business owners and that people, especially in the construction industry, are recognizing when their mental health is bad and working on it. It's just the same as your body. Yeah. When you have a bad situation with your body, you're getting weak, you're not feeling good, you need to take the time to make it better so that you can be as successful as possible. And people are just neglecting the mental health side, and they're not taking that into consideration, that impacts performance too. Yeah.
No, I think that's super well said. I think you covered the basis so well, and I'm really glad, especially that you kind of noted that kind of quirk about the construction business, about the kind of built-in precarity of you're kind of working your way out of employment all the time, and that uncertainty about, okay, is there going to be something in the pipeline when this thing ends, and that's really scary. And I think layered on top of that is sort of the peaks and valleys of the construction cycle. And, those of us that have been around the industry for a long time can remember how devastating 2008 and that period was. I mean, we threw 2 million people, construction workers, out of the industry. Yeah. And the deep scars that left on people, and then you have smaller cycles since then that you live with, and that takes an incredible toll on a human being, and so I think to pick up on what you're talking about, I think what we've tried to do with the Wellness Playbook is to try to create some basic tools to do what you're talking about doesn't need to be head in the clouds stuff. It doesn't need to be froofy. It can be sort of practical. Most construction workers think more practically, so we can give them a toolkit that is similarly practical to maybe think about this in similar terms. So maybe kind of talk about that piece a little bit next.
Yeah. So with the playbook, the committee, we all kind of sat down and talked about, okay, what is it that we're looking at? What's kind of the idea and the concept? And really that's where we wanted to be. It was practical, because I'm like I get it. Like, I'm not one that really likes, the touchy-feely, and I feel like that's kind of been the stigma with mental health, has always been like, okay, I have to talk about my feelings, and I have to open up, and I have to be vulnerable, and like, and such like a, not to make this sound, sexist or anything, but in a very feminine way, and it's a masculine industry. And so when we really looked at it, we're like, okay, what's practical things that can improve mental health that is not necessarily that, and that we can make it so that it's easier to swallow and be able to talk about, kind of thing. And so with the playbook, we looked at practical things that really do make an impact on your mental health that you might not realize, like technology usage, like making sure that you're not constantly on your phone. A lot of people are like, oh, when I hear that, I think of like, okay, I'm on TikTok or Facebook or, all the time, or I'm on, playing video games on there. But realistically, like, especially as a business owner, I'm guilty of it too. I'm constantly on my phone because I got emails coming in, and I got people texting and calling, and construction industry is 100 times worse because you got all the different subs and all the different builders that are trying to contact you about projects, and you're really, making sure that you're making time to set down electronic, your phone, letting your brain kind of have a break, giving yourself some of that space to really just decompress from all the craziness that's constantly coming at you. There's things like having conversations, and like how to have, a good argument with somebody that it's not impacting your mental health. Because like, especially now with like the political climate that's out there, there's so many varying different political climates, and it just seems to get more and more extreme every day. And how to have a decent conversation that it's not like, we can discuss and we can have different opinions, but at the end of the day, I'm still okay with me, you're still okay with you, we're still good together. Sure, we disagree on one point, but it doesn't impact us to the point where I'm frustrated, I'm angry at you. And so having conversations like that, or the basics of like how to do breath work, or talking to somebody about, and the different resources that are available for suicide prevention if somebody is in a crisis, or money. I think that's a big one. As once again, speaking as a business owner, like the financial side, if you come in, like those struggles are there, and so learning what resources are available to help you understand, okay, I need to better manage my money, where can I go? And so we really tried to find local and national resources that are in there. So yes, we have, a brief topic to talk about it, but then there's also resources that people can go to, because that's probably been the biggest thing that I've found in this industry, and not even an industry, just in general, is that people don't understand all the resources that are out there. That they're simple things like 988. 988 is a national line that you can call or text anytime, and it's free and anonymous if you're having mental health struggles. And it's like, we've had 2 classes now for the Safe Pillar series, and when that gets brought up, we'll have new people that are like, wait, was this a new number? Like, is this like an initiative that Utah's doing? And they're like, no, it's a nationwide thing. It's like 911, but for your mental health. And so just understanding some of those resources that are out there that make a big difference. And so that's really kind of what we tried to bring into this playbook, was just simple things that you can do that can make a big impact on your mental health. And then if you want to investigate it further, there's the resources to help you do better. Yeah,
I love that structure, because it is exactly that combination where it's a one-page bullet of really basic. You don't have to find a therapist. You don't have to figure out what your benefits are. You don't have to get in touch with anything in terms of your feelings or anyone else or anything like that. It's really practical stuff that you can, make the connection about your screen time or some very basic things that are kind of analogous to like a safe. Things are like, makes a little connection for you that can make that little bit of an incremental difference in your mental health, combined with these fantastic deeper resources that can connect you to additional help if you want it or need it, and collected into like these really big topics, really big, important. I think they're 13 or so.
13.
Big issues, and so it's not like there's limited coverage, but it's really concise. It's not you can go to whatever tab you're most interested in. It's not this gigantic Encyclopedia Britannica or anything.
Not the dictionary out there.
Very user friendly.
And that's kind of what we talked to this wellness committee was like, we want it to be something that's manageable, that's easy to find stuff, but then easy to talk about. And that's kind of what we did, 12, 13 modules in there. So it's like, okay, once a month, we all just, open it up as a team. You can talk about that one module real quick and then be done. And so it would be, the changes don't always, good, important changes don't always happen just all at once.
Yep.
They usually take small changes to make a bigger impact over time. And so that was kind of like, okay, well, if we can get companies and people to focus on at least mental health one time a month, that can make a huge impact later. And
it's exactly right. I mean, it's horrifying. The industry does have, if not the highest suicide rate of any industry, it's among the highest. I think this stat is something like 3 times the national average. Yeah. And so to your point, I mean, there's kind of some low-hanging fruit. If we could bend that even slightly, we're saving lives literally. Yeah. And frankly, it wouldn't take much to do that. There are relatively small things that could be the difference between life and death, and if you could start to stack some of those small things, you can make a real difference. And I like also that by having these other things, and we dove right into the deep end in terms of the suicide prevention aspect of it, but there's sort of a density of issues, a density of compounding factors, like substance issues that can compound. But another thing that comes up a lot too is general safety. Obviously, you'll have workplace accidents and so forth, and those are very traumatic. Those can be incredibly traumatic. And so, one thing that I noticed in the wellness playbook that I really liked was how to navigate those. I was not directly involved, but closely involved with a really severe construction site accident, and that was one of the kind of shocking things in the aftermath of that is how do we navigate this? Yeah. And so to be able to have a resource where you go to where you could kind of know, okay, because we just didn't really even know how to navigate it, but to be able to kind of go to a page and say, oh, okay, here's some simple things that we can kind of do immediately, and then, here are some additional resources of people that can step in and are practiced at this and give us some professional guidance as well is incredibly invaluable, I think.
Yeah, and it's exactly that, because like you said, it's something that, like with whether it's a physical accident or an incident or a mental incident, like crisis incident, a lot of the times it happens like that. You're not prepped for it. And so it's like, what do you do? Like I've had conversations with, different parents that are involved in suicide attempts, and they're just like, I didn't expect anything. And then all of a sudden it happened. And now, like, obviously with my side, with the safes, they're like, all of a sudden my child is coming back from the hospital and I have 24 hours to figure out what I'm going to do with all my lethal means, my firearms, anything that way. So they're like, I didn't even think about this. And so where do I go? What do I do? They once again, just not knowing what the resources are available or how to find those resources. And so that's what we kind of want to do with this is just, It's just, that's where you can go find that help. You can find the experts because, like you mentioned, those resources, they're experts. We've got awesome resources here in SUHBA that are they're ready to go. There's somebody who this is their job. If there's a workforce accident, they know it. They know how to go through all the processes. They know how to do workers' comp. They know how to go and have, meet with the workers' comp nurse and all those different things. And so just not having to navigate that yourself helps your mental load a ton, allows you to process things more because you're not in survival mode trying to figure all that stuff out. And that makes a huge difference on your mental health when you're like, okay, I know I have resources, I know I have help, I can do that, and I can cope with what I just dealt with, whether it's a mental crisis or whether you saw somebody, lose an arm because of something. Those are both traumatic things that you need time to decompress from. And so allowing yourself to let those resources helps you decompress and gets you back in the game sooner.
Yeah. You mentioned the Safe Pillar course. Maybe talk just a little bit. I'll just open it up and let you talk about that a little bit.
No, we've been SUHBA's been great and appreciate them for the Safe Pillar series. The Safe Pillar series I came up with as I researched and just kind of was looking from. I have an education background. I was a teacher for 5 years, and as I kind of studied what was being taught with the suicide prevention realm, a lot of it is very clinical because a lot of the conversations up to now have been very much at like university, statistical, research level, or they're in a medical field, some sort of whether it's a therapy field, like a mental health field, or the physical health field. And so when it came down to the people on the ground, the rest of us that are not in a clinical side, it was really tough to understand. And so I decided to really look at what we can do to talk and educate the rest of us that aren't in the clinical side, and how do we make that into something we can take home. And so with the Safe Pillar series, the design is that it brings more real world. Our last class was focused on construction, and it was the construction industry. And so we talked about, okay, what are the things that as a construction industry, we can talk about if someone's in crisis, what are the things that we can help? How do we have those conversations, those kind of things focused on the construction industry? But we really focus on basically three main parts. We talk about the prevention side. So what are the things that we can do to prevent, mental health crises, suicides? And then we talk about if someone's in an incident, when someone is in a crisis, how do we help them? What are the things that we say? What are the things that we don't say? What are the things that we offer? What help do we give? That kind of stuff. And then post-event. If somebody does die by suicide, or if they do attempt and they're unsuccessful, then what do we do to help them in those moments? Because once again, it's kind of that same thing. Like, what do I do post-event? We've had those conversations. It's like, with physical health, if somebody's in an accident, the whole neighborhood brings over casseroles and Jell-O, and they're right there for them. But with the mental health side, everyone's kind of like, I'm just going to stay away. And it's like, okay, that's the worst thing you can do. Be there for people still. We still treat them just like any other accident would have happened. Try to be there for them, support them. And then once again, with my educator background, I was like, okay, well, it's great to learn things, but then we got to put them into action. We really don't, we don't take things in if we don't have something actionable that we do with the knowledge that we've learned. And so we create a plan. And so we actually sit down and we say, okay, for our company, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do our prevention efforts. This is what we're going to do in case somebody's in a crisis. This is what we're going to do after an event happens. And so when it comes down to somebody is in any of those stages, we're not having to scramble and figure things out. We've already got a plan in place. We know what we're doing. We're ready to go, and we can support that person right then versus oh crap, what do we do? How do we help this? Let's go try and find something. We've already got a plan in place and we're good to go. And so that's kind of what the Safe Pillar series is designed around, is to kind of help get that plan and know what you're doing there.
Love it. Yeah. And my understanding is that it's run on kind of a revolving basis. You can jump in at any point, and then you wrap it around. So I think you've done two classes so far, so you can jump in now and then take the first and second after you've taken the third, fourth, and so on, right? Yeah.
It's preferably to start at the first, but because we hit all the different topics, you can start anywhere and be just fine, because we can jump in, because each topic area is still important. Each topic area is going to be something that you're going to need to have in your playbook and your plan anyways. And so it does make it so you can do that.
Yeah, that's tremendous. So anything else you're working on right now?
Yeah. So kind of going into the resources, one of the things that, as I investigated in and around kind of what things are effective, obviously there's our safe side, and as I've had real world conversations with people, kind of the idea is that some people that may not be able to afford safes, or they might not want the guns in their house or the lethal means in their house if somebody is in a crisis. And so we came up with a temporary offsite storage locker system that's going to be, we're deploying a couple here in southern Utah, and then we've got one up in Logan, up at Cash Coffee up there. But then we're going to do a few more throughout the state, and these are the first ones ever made.
Oh, interesting.
So we're building it homegrown here.
Pioneer,
we're going to be first time this has ever been done ever, and it's catching some good traffic and ground. But kind of the concept is if you have somebody in crisis, if you yourself are in crisis, there'll be locations currently here in southern Utah. We're looking at Rowdy's Range and then a couple other locations, but it's a self-service kiosk. You go up to it. You can put your firearms or your lethal means. It could be medications, weapons, whatever it is. You put them in the lockers. It's just like a storage unit. You select your time however you want. It's completely free. Doesn't cost anybody anything to rent them out. You can put them in there. You can select how long you want it, whether it's a week, whether it's 3 months. And then you store them in there. They're inside of a locked building, so they're secure in there, security systems, all that fun. And then each locker, you're the only one that knows your PIN and username, so you're the only one that can access it. Very little data is collected as far as your information. There's just a required amount that we have to do to follow federal regulations. But other than that, we try to keep things as anonymous as possible. I tried to make it as easy as possible for somebody if they don't want to interact with somebody because they just they don't want to they don't want to talk with people. I kind of have that same mindset. I'm like, I like to keep my problems to myself. I don't want to bring it out, and so you can go in there, rent it out. We have a temporary lockout feature too. So if you feel like it's something that you're in a bad place and you might be tempted to go retrieve that item, we can actually go in and set a temporary lockout so where your PIN won't actually work. And then you can set it up to be a day, 2 days, a week. And so you wouldn't be able to go in there and access it, just to give yourself that time and distance. Because, realistically, the stats say that a crisis lasts about 10 minutes. And so if you can break that, or you can prevent yourself from getting to lethal means in 10 minutes, you're highly likely to not try and attempt. And so that was kind of the concept there, is we wanted to really just give that extra time and space and distance from somebody so that they can come and use the lockers. Like I said, it doesn't cost them anything. They don't have to stress about finances. They don't have to stress about anything that way. They can just go put it in there, get that off of their plate, and continue to focus on working with their mental health, or with whoever they're dealing with mental health.
Make the decision we hope they'll make as easy as possible.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's fantastic. No, I think what comes across that's so important is, that you're really making it as easy as possible for people to make the decision that we all hope they'll make, and coming from a place that is free of judgment, from an ally and from a friend. And so I really appreciate the work you're doing, and it's Safe for a Cause. We'll put that in the description along with some of our additional resources. So thanks a lot for coming in today, Scott.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah,
and appreciate our audience for tuning in today, and make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. See you in the next one.